Hello everybody, the Nameless Narcissist here once again, a simple man diagnosed with NPD, giving you the facts of narcissistic personality disorder and things that go on in my head. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, but keep in mind I am no clinician. I can only speak to my own experiences and the research that I read. Oh man, so I was revisiting, so as most of you know, for those of you that don't, I spoke at a conference for the Norwegian Institute of the Research into Personality Psychiatry, and I was not able to attend in person. I did a pre-recorded segment because I didn't want to wake up at 6 in the morning. But there was one researcher there, Anthony Bateman, who I'm very much hoping to interview on my channel here soon, or relatively speaking soon. He noticed in me, and I was kind of impressed because it was subtle. A subtle thing that I was indicating is that in my vulnerability, in recognizing my narcissism and recognizing the issues I've had in my past in terms of my family life, because for those of you that don't know, my family life was not great, that there was an inherent grandiosity in me being able to be vulnerable, right? So what I mean by that is I take pride in the fact that I am so self-aware, that I am able to recognize the facts about myself that are inherently narcissistic. I am the best narcissist because I am so aware of my issues. I am so aware of the fact that my narcissism affects me in a negative way. Is that genuine vulnerability? No. I talk about a lot of the things that affect me through my narcissism, and there's grandiosity behind it. I am telling an entire audience how I am a narcissist and how I'm fucked up, right? But despite that, I'm still able to very accurately describe what I'm going through. People all the time say narcissists can't be aware. Narcissists their self-deception is too strong. Their grandiosity is too impenetrable. Then there's me who, compared to, like, literally you can see in my expressions right now that it's still affecting me. Even compared to normal people, my self-reflection is, relatively speaking, very, very good. What is vulnerable about that? What's vulnerable at the fact that I can talk about things that are negative about myself, about my shitty childhood, about, I don't know, in my one video about making my childhood, that was kind of vulnerable, but like there's not vulnerability in that. There's only grandiosity. And a lot of people will make comments saying that it's impressive that I'm being vulnerable. And I honestly think, and I'm not coming at anybody who has said something like that. I'm not saying that like you were stupid for thinking that or anything like that. And there are times that I am genuinely vulnerable, although they are rare. Especially when I'm showing any sort of emotionality. But the fact of the matter is, I am taking pride in that vulnerability. And I think this illustrates what a genuine, vulnerable presenting narcissist is actually like. They are not being genuinely vulnerable by saying that they're terrible people or that they have suffered more than everybody else in the world, stuff like that. That's grandiose. All of that's grandiose. I personally believe, now that I've been thinking about that there is no such thing as a vulnerable, quote unquote, narcissist. There can be more neurotic presentations, right? But none of that vulnerability is genuine. All that vulnerability is just this, how do I put it, a front. It's vulnerability that they're taking pride in. I am the worst person in the world, or I have been wronged by so many people. It makes me so upset that I've been wronged by so many people that the world doesn't realize how great I am. I don't see any part of those things that are vulnerable. I will call myself a monster sometimes. I do believe it a lot of times. I do feel inherently like I'm a bad person, but it's the same thing with all grandiosity in narcissism. We present our vulnerabilities and the things that we're secretly self-conscious about in a way that has so much bravado behind it that it can't be vulnerable. You're not accessing any emotions there. There's no emotionality there. It's only grandiosity. I know I sound like a broken record right now, but I think this is so important for people to realize. Because, and I'm sure a lot of people do realize this, because a lot of the research literature or case studies indicate like, oh, this person's a vulnerable, quote unquote, narcissist, but the grandiosity is like hidden behind that. No, the grandiosity is right in front of your fucking face. If that makes sense. And they use it as proof that sometimes they'll say things like, oh yeah, but I am smarter than everybody else. I am better than everybody else. And use that as evidence that that's the grandiosity and the vulnerability. No, that is part of the same structure. Part of the same structure. If a narcissist isn't showing emotion when he describes something, that's still grandiosity. You understand? I really hope I'm making sense right now. Because, and it kind of baffles me that a lot of clinicians don't notice that. I did that. I presented almost vulnerably with my therapist, admitting these things that I've done, admitting that I'm a terrible person, admitting that I have gone through so much. Do you think that I showed any sort of emotionality? I would express like emotionality in terms of how I was speaking about it, right? I'd be like, yeah, I feel so bad about it. I feel really bad about the fact that I, slept with this person's girlfriend. Did you notice me being sad about that? And when I do these videos, it's very similar. I'll admit these things I've done wrong, and there's not a genuine vulnerability there. I think it's still good. I think it's still productive because I am admitting these things freely and acknowledging that they were bad and that I do have an urge to change them, but it's not vulnerable for me. I mean, hell, even with the example I just gave, there's not really a vulnerability behind that because I secretly kind of feel proud that I'm able to do that and think that people might be able to envy that. And I know that you guys don't actually envy that. That's pathological thinking. Don't come at me, please. And I think that's what a lot of narcissists do. They'll present things that they pretend to be ashamed of. But instead of being actually ashamed of it, they're kind of proud of it. And I think that's the case for a lot of the things that I admit on this channel, unless that you see very obvious, like, emotionality there. And don't get me wrong, I am sometimes vulnerable on this channel. But most of the time, it's me expressing vulnerability in a way that I know is going to actually elicit admiration. And you can see that in a lot of my comments that I get. Sometimes it is warranted, I would say. And here's how you know, is, like, I'll never... Okay, never mind. I will never show that in my comments in response. I'll always be like, thank you so much, right? It'll be the same for if it was genuinely vulnerable or if it was fake vulnerability. Or maybe not fake vulnerability, but vulnerability with a grandiose aspect. But if I'm genuinely vulnerable and you guys give me accolades for being vulnerable like that, I will get uncomfortable. I'll start, like, I won't express it, but I'll be kind of squirming in my seat, being like, no, like, don't like that. That's awful. I hate that. But if it's something that was fake vulnerable, I'll kind of brush it off. I feel fake about it. I feel like I am lying to people and I'm deceiving people, even though that the distinction between the vulnerability with the grandiosity and vulnerability without it can be, in certain instances, it can be not important. But the reaction that I have is so different. I'm having a brief moment of vulnerability right there, a genuine vulnerability, because I'm like reflecting on how people are going to be reacting to this and how people are going to judge me. Feel like that all this time they've changed their opinion on narcissism. Meanwhile, I am not actually a good not good representation, but not a good narcissist in terms of moral attributes. Not a good narcissist is what I mean. Because that does terrify me. That's fucking vulnerable right there. Is that, like, I am terrified. And, like, I'm sure some people even notice this in my videos. I know some have. They've made comments about that. Is that, like, as the video goes on, I become more vulnerable because I kind of forget the fact that I'm talking to an audience to some degree. And I kind of get caught up in what I'm saying. Fuck, I don't know now. Now I'm questioning what I said because now I'm reflecting on everything I said and I'm, like, having a lot of regret and shame over it because I admitted to the fact that, like, it's not actually vulnerability, the thing that a lot of people admire me for. May not admire me, but you know what I mean. I don't want people, and I'll take what I say seriously, just because there's grandiosity in this vulnerability, because it is, like, it's the truth. I don't lie. I try not to, at least. I do, okay, I do lie occasionally, not about anything important, but like just subtle things to make it so that I come off as slightly better. Like the example I always use in terms of my compulsive lying is that I'll learn about something, and maybe if I learn it off a YouTube video, I might tell somebody that I learned it out of a study, so it sounds more reputable, so it sounds like I'm smart because I read studies, and also it sounds like what I'm saying has to be true because I did read it out of a study and off a YouTube video. Here, I have never sourced anything on narcissism here that's been from a YouTube video, mainly because there's no fucking YouTube video on YouTube no video about narcissism on YouTube that actually has any fucking valid information other than Cluster B Milkshake and Spirit Narc, and me, naturally. But there are things like that I will do. And sometimes I even play up some of the bad things that I did because, again, inherent grandiosity and the badness. Because I'm trying to cover up that innate feeling of badness that I feel. I'm trying to make it so that it's something I can take pride in. I used to call myself the devil to people, or Satan, or Morningstar, or Lucifer, whatever you want to fucking call it, because I used to identify with fallen angels, so to speak. Because it's funny because there's grandiosity and, in quotes, vulnerability, because it's like I'm admitting and I'm being bad, but at the same time, it's like, you know, it's an angel, right? There's power in that. There's, it feels so fake right now. It feels like my emotion, it feels like fucking my emotional distress around sharing these things. It feels fake. It always fucking feels fake. Jesus Christ, is this video even worth posting? I'm getting really in my head now. Everything I fucking do feels so goddamn fake. Is even what I said true? Or is it just my imposter syndrome reflecting on my vulnerability? I think what I said was true. I do. I'm gonna wrap this video up. I got things to think about. Like, comment, and subscribe. Take your fucking meds.